Oh, wala. Ano, sa likod.
Mommy, hi, mommy.
Hi, Ma'am Yanes.
Opponent, but by a schedule that would make even Serena Williams wince. And what if that same mother decides she has had enough and gives the entire Women's Tennis Association exactly 24 hours to respond, or else? Stick around, because what Alexandra Eala'S mom just unleashed is about to shake professional tennis to its core. And trust me, the WTA never saw this coming. Quick favor, if you are loving this content, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers have not subscribed yet. It costs nothing, but it means the world to us. Did you click it? Awesome, thanks so much. Now back to the main event. Picture this, the Qatar Open, bright lights, packed stands, and Alexandra Eala, the pride of the Philippines, stepping onto the court after a scheduling nightmare that would make any rational person question the sanity of whoever runs the WTA calendar. The 19-year-old phenom had just played a grueling 3-set marathon, barely 18 hours earlier, her muscles still screaming, her body begging for rest. But no, the WTA decided back-to-back matches were perfectly fine. Spoiler alert, it was not fine, not even close. Eala lost, not because she lacked talent, but because her tank was running on fumes, while her competition was fresh off a full night's sleep. You could see it in her movements, the slight hesitation, the fractional delay in her footwork, the way her serve lost that explosive pop. This was not a tennis match, it was a test of human endurance disguised as professional sport. And when the final point was played and Eala walked off that court, exhausted warriors were busy typing their hot takes about how Eala was overrated, how she choked under pressure, how maybe she should stick to local tournaments. Someone was watching all of this unfold with a fury that could melt steel. Eala's mother, a woman who had sacrificed everything to get her daughter to this level, who had watched her baby girl train until her hands bled, who knew every single midnight practice session and every tear shed in hotel rooms far from home. And she was done. Not just annoyed, not just disappointed, done. Within hours of that loss, while the trolls were still warming up their nastiest comments, Eala's mom dropped what can only be described as a thermonuclear truth bomb on social media. She did not hold back. She did not use diplomatic language. She went straight for the jugular, calling out the WTA by name, demanding answers, and here's the kicker, giving them exactly 24 hours to respond to her concerns or face consequences that would make the tennis world very uncomfortable. Imagine that, a parent, not a corporate sponsor, not a federation official, but a mother, handing the most powerful women's tennis organization in the world an ultimatum with a ticking clock. That takes guts the size of center court at Wimbledon. Her statement was not just about one match, it was about systemic neglect. She laid out how the WTA scheduling practices are destroying young players, particularly those from countries like the Philippines, who lack the same resources as athletes from traditional tennis powerhouses. She talked about how her daughter had been given less than 18 hours between matches, while other players got 2 full days of rest. She pointed out the hypocrisy of the WTA preaching about mental health while simultaneously running their athletes into the ground. And then she went after the online harassers, the faceless cowards spewing hatred and a teenager pursuing her dreams. The response was immediate and divided. On one side, you had the of making excuses, classic victim blaming wrapped in sports toughness. On the other side, you had a tsunami of support. Former players, current athletes, coaches, sports psychologists, and millions of fans who looked at the situation and said, "This is not okay. This is about basic human decency." But Eala'S mom was not just venting into the void. She shared medical reports about the physical toll of back-to-back matches on young athletes. She even included statements from sports science experts explaining how inadequate recovery time exponentially increases injury risk and decreases performance. This was not a rant. It was a meticulously documented case for systemic reform, delivered with the passion of a mother
watched her daughter be treated as expendable by an organization that should be protecting her. And then came the 24 issues. First, immediate reform of scheduling practices to ensure adequate rest between matches. Second, a comprehensive plan to combat online harassment of players. Third, an acknowledgement from the WTA that they had failed Alexandra Eala and young players from non-traditional tennis nations, along with a formal apology. If the WTA ignored this ultimatum, she would take the story to every major media outlet and encourage other parents and players to come forward. Twitter exploded. Hashtags Justice for Eala, Fix the WTA, and Protect Young Athletes started trending globally. Journalists who normally cover only Grand Slams were suddenly writing think pieces about systemic issues in professional tennis. Former players who had stayed quiet for years started speaking up, sharing stories that ranged from frustrating to horrifying. One retired player revealed she had been scheduled to play doubles immediately after a 3-set singles match, resulting in a career-ending knee injury. Another talked about being threatened with fines when she complained about playing in extreme heat.
But here is where it gets really juicy. As the 24-hour clock ticked down, the WTA went
after a
silent.
historic giant slaying
Radio
run in Dubai
silence.
that saw her
Not
topple
a
the world's
single
elite,
official
the Filipino
statement.
phenom is
Not
not
even
just
a
rising.
"we're looking into it" holding message. Nothing. And with every passing hour, the pressure mounted. Sports networks started countdown timers. Fans camped out in the comments sections of official WTA social media accounts, demanding answers. The tennis community was watching in real time as an organization known for its polished public relations machine seemed completely paralyzed by a mother's demand for basic accountability. Meanwhile, Eala herself remained relatively quiet, posting only a brief thank you to her supporters and a statement that she trusted her mother to speak on her behalf. That restraint, that dignity in the face of both the original injustice and the subsequent trolling only made people angrier on her behalf. Here was a teenager who had done everything right, trained harder than most people twice her age, represented her country with pride, and her reward was exhaustion, public humiliation, and a governing body that could not even be bothered to acknowledge her existence. The 24 hours came and went. The WTA missed the deadline, and true to her word, Eala'S mom went nuclear. She appeared on multiple international sports programs, giving interviews where she held nothing back. She named names. She called out specific WTA officials for their lack of response. She shared even more documentation about scheduling inequities. She talked about the financial burden on families from countries like the Philippines, how they mortgage their homes and drain their savings to give their kids a shot at professional sponsorship money. And you know what? It worked. Within 48 hours of the original deadline passing, the WTA finally issued a statement. Was it everything Eala'S mom demanded? Not even close. It was the classic corporate non-apology apology, full of phrases like, "We take these concerns seriously, and we are committed to continuous improvement," but light on specifics and completely devoid of any admission of wrongdoing. They promised to review their scheduling practices, announced a new partnership with an anti-cyberbullying organization, and offered vague reassurances about supporting all players, regardless of nationality. No mention of Alexandra Eala by name, no acknowledgement that they had ignored a reasonable request for 24 hours, just enough words to make it seem like they cared, without actually committing to meaningful change. But here is the thing. This story is not over, not by a long shot, because what Eala'S mom did was open a door that the WTA problem, everyone knows there is, to how quickly the WTA will be forced to fix it. And every time they schedule ranked competitors, someone is going to point to Alexandra Eala and ask why nothing has changed. This goes beyond tennis. This is about power dynamics, about who gets to set the rules and who just has to live with them. It is about the courage it takes to stand up to an institution that holds your daughter's career in its hands and say, "This is wrong, fix it."
It is about the reality that sometimes the only way to force change is to make so much noise that silence becomes more expensive than action. So here we are, folks. Alexandra Eala lost a tennis match in Qatar, but her mother just won something far more important. She won attention, she won allies, and she won a place in the ongoing fight to make professional sports more humane. The WTA can issue all the carefully worded statements they want, but they cannot unring this bell. The world is watching now, and every parent, every young player, every person who has ever felt dismissed by a system that should be protecting them, they're all watching too. Because in the end, this is not about one 24-hour ultimatum. It is about whether we value athletes as human beings or just as content for our entertainment. And if Eala'S mom has anything to say about it, and clearly she does, that answer better start leaning heavily toward the human being's side. Stay tuned, because something tells me this is just the opening serve in a much longer match. And this time, the WTA does not get to control the clock.